Okay, this is after the colonoscopy. Um, Unfortunately, I wasn't able to take any videos at the hospital, but just to let you know what went on, my son picked me up at 9:30 and had me to the hospital early, like about 10 after 10. So they got us in early, even though we were scheduled for 11 o'clock. They got us in about 10:40 or so. Then, of course, the first thing they do is they grab for the money. They rush you over to the cashier's counter, and you got to pay your copay or pay for it outright, depending on what kind of insurance you have or you don't have. So then you sit down, you fill out a bunch of paperwork, and eventually they call your name and they take you into a little, I guess it's the recovery room area, and they curtain off a little section with your gurney in it. They tell you to take all your clothes off from your waist on down and leave your shirt on, put on this hospital gown with the opening to the back, of course, and your butt exposed. Then they have you sit down on the bed they lay you down and they hook up the IV and they hook up the finger blood oximeter and the blood pressure cuff, and they take your blood pressure, and of course mine was elevated. They asked me if I wanted something to calm down a little bit, and I said sure, why not. They said okay, they'll give me this. Gave me 2 milligrams of this stuff, which is basically a derivative. It's a brother or a sister of Valium, and I had already told them I was Valium tolerant, and so 2 milligrams was like having nothing to me. So they gave me another 2 milligrams, which was 4 milligrams, nothing. So then they rolled me into the actual suite where they do the procedure. The doctor came in and he looked at me and he goes, "You still okay?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We gave you 4 milligrams of that stuff." I said, "I told you I was Valium tolerant." They go, "Oh, okay." They proceeded to make me lie on my left-hand side and expose my buttocks to the world. And there was a couple of nurses, and there was a black girl. She was an anesthesiologist. She was the only one in there not smiling. She had a mean look on her face. She was grumpy, boy. She's the only one I didn't like in there. Everybody else was fine. The doctor came in and answered some last-minute questions that I had, and they hooked me up to the IV. And the last thing I remember was them putting that plastic piece in my mouth to keep me from biting down on the endoscopy tube while they're doing the upper GI. That's the last thing I remember. I tried to, and that's the last thing I remember. So evidently the doctor had given her some signal to put me out. And next thing I knew, I was waking up, and the nurse was telling me that I was in the recovery room, and the procedure was finished. Did I want some apple juice? And I said sure. So I had a little glass of apple juice and waited in the recovery room for about, I don't know, about half an hour. They got me out of the recovery room itself and moved me, and then I went into the little waiting room. My son came, picked me up, felt a little bit woozy. The doctor finally came out and he started talking to me. I remember him specifically, and at the moment I remember the conversation very clearly, and to give me the details of what he had found, which was nothing. My large intestine and bowels and all that are in very good functioning order, no polyps, everything looked normal, and that's it. Basically the exam came out normal. Now he said on the endoscopy, on the upper GI, that I had some gastritis. Oh, he gave me picture colonoscopy also. I'm going to paste him into this iMovie program. And he discussed my upper endoscopy with me, and he said that I had no esophageal varices, which is what he was concerned with. And then he went into my stomach and he found some gastritis. So he took a biopsy to make sure that it wasn't H. pylori. H. pylori stands for Heliobacter pylori, which is the name of the bacterium that causes stomach ulcers. They found out that most stomach ulcers are caused by a bacterium called Heliobacter pylori. So anyway, he took a biopsy and won't have the results of that for 5 to 7 days. Meanwhile, he gave me a prescription for Zantac, I believe it is. And I don't understand what the gastritis was about anyway. I've never had a problem with my stomach. I've never. I'm thinking that it's from the 40 pills of Visicol that I downed the night before, but I guess the doctor would suspect that first. We left the hospital, and I was still feeling a little woozy, so it's a good thing John was driving. And I did an amnesia effect that comes in with time as time goes past, because I remember very distinctly talking to the doctor, and I remember the details of the conversation, and then as more and more time went by, the less and less I remembered about the conversation, until now, really, all I remember is his face in front of me. I remember he was talking to me and I was asking questions, but I don't remember the questions, I don't remember the answers, and the more time went by, the less I remembered about it. And then, so he brought me home and dropped me off, and I thought I was pretty much over the medication, and then I found that I would get up and I'd walk into another room in the house, and I wouldn't remember why I went there. So I'd go back to the first room, and then I'd remember. So I'd turn around and I'd walk back into the room again, and I wouldn't remember why I went there. And this kept happening. I kept walking from room to room to room to room, and I wouldn't remember why I went there. So finally I just gave up, and I sat down and just, I had something to eat. We had picked something to eat. I was feeling fine. There was absolutely no pain whatsoever in my throat or in my tail end. And I felt perfectly normal. Absolutely no symptoms whatsoever that anything had been done, other than the dizziness from the sedation. In general, if they put you under general anesthesia, you're not going to remember anything about it. You're not going to feel any pain. And what really surprised me was there was no burping, and there was no gas whatsoever. So if they pumped air into me, they pulled it right back out again or something. Either that, or I was having a fart fest while I was unconscious, which is possible too, I guess. That's pretty much it. So at least I went through the screening procedure, and I know that I don't have any precursors to colon cancer at the moment. I suppose I've got to be checked again in about another 5 years. That's the new standard I understand they're starting to adopt. So I'm not so worried about it for the next time. The prep procedure was a breeze. I was a little bit nervous at the hospital, but not too nervous, because I'd done enough reading about the procedure that I knew pretty much what to expect. So it does a lot of good if you're about to have the procedure done. It does a lot of good to get on the internet and start reading articles about it. The more you read about it, the more you learn about it. The more you learn about it, the more comfortable you feel about it, and the less anxious you're going to be about it when the time comes. So do your research, do your reading, do your studying. Make sure you know what's going on. Unless you're one of those people that doesn't give a damn and just wants to be out and get it over with. I've always had kind of a technical background, and always been curious about medical procedures and technical procedures like upper endoscopy and colonoscopy. I'm glad I got it over with. So at least now I know that everything's normal down there. Thank God there was nothing there to discover. So it's a good thing to get done. It gives you some peace of mind. I've got some peace of mind at least for another 5 years. So we'll see what happens when I'm 58. Okay, that's pretty much the story, and I don't have anything else to say right now. Anyway, talk to you later. Take care.